Uh, Good afternoon here in San Jose, and good morning or good afternoon if you're viewing online. My name is Rob Coyle.
I'm Carl Robert. Hi.
And we're here to talk about the OCP Ready Guidelines for deploying modular data centers. Carl and I both have been working in the modular data center subproject for some time now, and it's evolved. And we're trying to encourage more adoption of OCP solutions in a modular data center environment. And the community came together to identify some problems that we had run into, or maybe even just a plateau in the development of some of the solutions. And so we took that input from the community, and Carl and I have both been working on ways to increase the adoption. And as Brett had mentioned in the last session, really find opportunities to optimize a modular data center environment for OCP hardware. So with that, I think we'll get started.
Sure.
Okay, we did our introductions, but I guess that was on the other slide, so here we are again. I'll go ahead and let Carl introduce himself first.
Yes, so I got involved with the MDC group to basically solve a problem that I have on my own. I was running a data center project in North Germany, and there was really a need for an MDC that is capable of OCP. And to promote that, I was really interested in the OCP Ready recognition program, but there was a mismatch that this was the OCP Ready facility is not yet ready for smaller data centers. I've then, together with Rob and the initiative around the MDC, we started looking into that and creating something. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I'm Rob Coyle. I've been in the OCP community for almost 5 years now. I really grew up in construction, so physical critical environments are something that I have the most experience with. But I'm really excuse me. That was quick. I should cut off my alerts here, I guess. There we go. Okay, we're back. So I grew up in construction, but I'm really a technology addict. I'm an early adopter on stuff in my home. I mean, when I come to this conference and look at things that I know very little about, it's such at the edge of technology. I enjoy it so much. I enjoy learning so much. And I've really found an opportunity in infrastructure is to really leverage the changing that is happening around software and hardware in the IT stack. And how does that impact the facility? I was hearing talks at the keynote about how the cycle time of IT hardware isn't quick enough at the growth rate we're going. Well, look at construction. Construction hasn't changed in over 100 years in large scope. So if technology is going to change at this rate, what are we doing about the facilities that we build to house this technology? And will they change as quick to optimize the performance? So I feel very fortunate to have found the OCP, the data center as a career for myself, and I feel very much at home. So I'll let Carl kind of talk into the problem of, he kind of previewed the challenges that we have around the OCP Ready program doesn't really match a modular data center environment.
Yeah, so I think what you can actually do is if you have a modular data center and you have it in a facility, then the existing program or OCP Ready facility recognition program is applicable. But more and more deployments are in, so to speak, in the wild under the 5G tower in production, in more and more use cases for autonomous driving. So there's more the European perspective together with Rob's perspective here, but we see announcement for 500 modular data centers at once for 5G. So and some of them actually looking into ORAN OCP combination, so that is actually quite a viable way now also to look if those facilities can be maybe even co-locate other OCP workloads. So and that is what basically we're now trying to have standalone MDCs also be ready for OCP.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. And elaborate a little bit on the challenge we saw was, you see a few examples here. All the way to the left is the 90 kW modular data center design. This is available in the OCP marketplace. You can look at design files. You can go in there and see exactly how it's built. And that was contributed by PCX under the Schneider Electric and Swedish Module specification. The Swedish Modules is the design there in the middle. It's more of a scalable 300 kW design. And that one looks actually somewhat different than a traditional modular data center that houses traditional IT hardware. It has taken some advantages of the footprint that OCP hardware has compared to traditional IT equipment. But you can see with how different an OCP server looks, all the way to the right there, and how these boxes still kind of look very similar. And we're still looking to how traditional buildings are constructed and adopting them for modular. And really, the direction should be the other way. The IT hardware and the optimization should be dictating what the facility should look like, and not housing it the other way. We have these contributions, but and we're looking to update those specifications. But the community came together to look at that and say, what if we created standards and use the OCP Ready program to adopt any type of modular data center that's going to house OCP hardware? And it really gives an opportunity for more contributions to come into the marketplace, more facilities to have some guidelines around OCP hardware specifically. So I'll share a little bit about the OCP Ready. My role here at OCP now is the co-lead with Mark Danzy on the OCP Ready program. And our focus is on co-location facilities. So we have standards and a checklist that help co-location facilities don the moniker of OCP Ready. And it has to do with the physical differences of OCP hardware. When it's fully stacked, it can be much heavier than traditional data center. We're typically racking and stacking and rolling. And so some of those operational changes with OCP hardware need to be considered in a facility compared to traditional IT equipment. So we offer those guidelines. They're free to any co-location facility to go look at and use. But then if they want to become part of the OCP recognition program, there is a self-evaluation checklist. There's a little bit of an agreement deal to be signed and a contribution to the OCP, and then you're off and running. And you become part of the OCP Ready marketplace. So this has been so successful. In the co-location facility, we saw similar challenges when that was created to what we see today in MDC. So we said, instead of reinventing the wheel, let's use our own open source available guidelines and adopt them for the modular data center. So this is the solution. The data center facilities, which is this subproject, has the MDC subproject underneath it, and we created a work stream for the OCP Ready MDC. So we're going to set the guidelines to level set site requirements for modular data centers, and then we're going to model it after existing OCP Ready requirements. Anything I missed there, Carl?
No, I think that's pretty much it, yeah.
All right. So we're pretty early on in the work stream. We've reviewed the guideline document, and with the help of other community members from Schneider Electric and other companies that have been joining in on our calls, we're adopting some of the requirements that a co-location facility would use, but a modular data center would not. Right? There's things that completely don't apply as far as ramp heights and pitches, things like that. Cooling technologies that wouldn't necessarily apply in a modular data center, things like that. Our next phase is really to adopt the checklist, go through the checklist and make sure we're matching, in an MDC environment versus a colo environment, what would be needed. And we're still evaluating the criteria that are most critical in a modular data center compared to a co-location facility. So the site itself, things like that. Because the feedback I got, I don't know about you, Carl, but when I talked to someone about interested in deploying a modular data center and never have done so before, they don't know where to start.
No, you're absolutely right. There are considerations, like with large-scale data centers. First of all, you need data, you need power, and sometimes, depending on the cooling, you need also lots of water to that site. So that should be that guide should also help out in that department. Yeah.
And I have a hope for, like the co-location facilities have done too, is they've seen other OCP ready co-location facilities, find ways that they've used it to, market their own services, like Nautilus being the only North American OCP ready facility today. They have a very unique deployment on a barge over water. These are exposures to new ways of doing things, and the modular world is much more varied than I would say the traditional colo world. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities to learn from other companies that propose solutions.
Absolutely, it might also be a quickly evolving spec, since we see also a lot of modular. Just what you said, tying into what you and Brad were talking about, new cooling technologies. Different designs for HPC deployments than traditional cloud deployments, so that could be quickly extended. Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't possibly come up with all the variations that would come up, especially when you add on things like advanced cooling technologies. It'd be very hard to be prescriptive and exclude someone from modular data centers. So, yeah, it'd be very interesting to see. I mean, Carl, you have a unique modular data center solution too. I mean, you can speak to that a little bit in your timber approach.
Yeah, sure. So my being made aware of OCP and OCP circular equipment. At the time, I had a location with renewable energy, and the data center for me was a bit of the misfit. It was a lot of steel and concrete, and so I looked into alternatives and found the Swedish guys, at Eco Data Centers. And then I looked for a modular approach in that sense, so did not find it, and now I'm a data center designer and builder. Yeah, looking into sustainable materials is and efficiency for those solutions. So if you might have had the opportunity to be here on Monday, we presented a 100 megawatt data center from wood with a superconductive bus bar. So that was a bit of a moonshoot project to show into something there, but the core of what I try to do is sustainable infrastructure for that. Yeah.
Thank you. So there's examples right now. You can go onto the OCP Ready website within the OCP and look at the guideline documents, take a look at them yourselves. They're out there along with the facility info. So we have a database of all the OCP Ready facilities, and they've submit their information, so that's available as well. This is what the checklist looks like. It's a Google Sheets or Excel document that you self-fill out, and so the process is you read the guidelines, make sure your facility is up to the guidelines, and you go through the checklist. And the checklist has a compliant moniker, or it has an optimized moniker, depending on the the answers to each of these questions. They're then submitted to the community for review. The co-location provider shares it with the data center facilities group as part of a presentation, and then that information is sent to, once the community has had the opportunity to review it and respond to any questions or concerns they might have, it then goes to the IC for approval. The IC reviews the submission, and then once that's approved, the colo facility can don the moniker of OCP Ready, and then they're shared in our marketplace as an available resource. So we want to do the same thing with modular data centers, essentially. Really, the project, subproject community, join anywhere in the tier. As Brett laid out, join data center facilities. Learn anything about, our facilities projects, the modular data center group, and then, if you're acutely interested in OCP Ready for modular data centers and you see value there, we have a work stream, and we'd love to have you join us.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities and of people also already here that we're trying to reach out. Vertiv builds modular data center, Rittal has modular data centers. I'm sure we might have even overlooked somebody on the expo floor, but even community members, I think could be their insights could be very valuable to this list, and we just ask you to have a look and reach out.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Does anybody have any questions? All right, then I expect you to join and share with us what you already know with no questions. Oh, Madhu, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. Can you speak a little bit? I think we have some time. So
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the modular data center marketplace. I'm aware of the products and the attributes of the products, whether it's container or modular or like a FRU. But what is, in your mind, the difference between a colo and a modular, and what's the evolution been out there?
That's a great question. If I summarize a little bit, Madhu had asked about how we see the modular data center market, and as I mentioned, it's widely varied. Carl, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the relation to the marketplace, I think that was one part of the question. So that is relatively similar to the existing OCP co-location facilities. That you also have the opportunity to be a more decentralized approach for co-location activities, and potentially I find your question interesting in terms that we might also have not only the specification but also products on the marketplace, and as an option is definitely something to talk to OCP about. I think that would be very interesting for MDC manufacturers.
Yeah, and we do today have products on the marketplace, just like you'd find, server rack hardware. There's a 90 kW modular data center, as I mentioned, from PCX is on there. You also have the 300 kW modular data center from Swedish Modules. So those are products that live out there. But one of the challenges is we didn't see a bunch of products come behind it. And a challenge, in my experience in the modular data center space, is all these individual companies coming up with their own solutions in these silos, where they're not sharing best practices and how to do it. So I think it's a twofold approach. We have the marketplace. People are welcome to submit modular data center designs for OCP recognition, either by Inspired or approved as a product. But to encourage, sharing more about this modular data center approach, as we see the decentralization of data centers and the growth not only in the core, in the hyperscalers, but also at the edge and also at regional and also at central offices. Modular data centers are a good application for that, but not necessarily everybody's going to have a product that they're willing to submit to the marketplace. So how do we create some sort of baseline for all those varying sizes and applications and cooling technologies and hardware for modular data centers? The recognition program is part of that. Yes, please.
Quick question, Dan Gockwitz from UL. Carl, I assume you're from Germany, right?
Yeah, I'm from Germany. Yeah.
Can you tell me what about regulations on modular data center installations in Germany? Because they're heavily regulated in the United States and Canada. I mean, through the National Electric Code. What about German market? Since you're designing and building it.
Yeah.
I assume you're doing it in Germany.
Yeah. No, I'm doing it in Germany and in Europe, and you have a different similar approach, in terms of the regulations. Since you tie in, as I said, in a lot of infrastructure, until you have your reasonable size power supply in there, or the fiber can take up some time, then you need the building permits. But for me, it's hard to judge in terms of, you say, like heavily regulated, since most of buildings permits is relatively liberal for other buildings. I think that the regulation for the modular data center part can be a bit closer or be a bit more on par for what we're facing and you guys are facing, but there are obviously looked as critical infrastructure, and so there are special requirements and even security critical considerations that you have to be fulfilling. But the building permit, having building permit power and fiber to it, then you're usually all set and done. But the building permit can be tricky.
Important to understand that modular data center that's OCP ready for deployment in EU is very different than modular data center that's ready for deployment in United States. So that has to be distinguished. That is critical.
Do that. That's an interest. So basically, you're saying, because we can't hear it, that an OCP data center to deploying in the EU is different than in the US and Canada, and
The power wall is different. National Electric Code Article 646 governs modular data centers in the United States. So there are requirements for what can be put in, what is the fire suppression, what's the walking space, what is the illumination, what is the exit. There's actually very strict requirements for modular data center defined in the National Electric Code in the United States.
yeah, no, I agree. But for example, if we look at the 90 kilowatt specification, that looks quite similar to existing or comparable solutions from Vertiv and Rittal in Europe. And we all deal with the limitations, of the modular data center, and try to make them adapt to national codes, and they are surprisingly similar. So, but it is, I think, a fair point to make to have a bracket, or to see like what are the national specific requirements,
Yeah, I think it's a fair call out that the submissions, knowing personally very well the PCX submission that was co-written with Schneider Electric, that's within the guidelines of the National Electric Code and that design. But our challenge today is not the limitations of the regulation. Our limitation is the densification and cooling technologies and things of that nature that could really change the modular data center. So while still meeting egress, while still meeting the panel board requirements, regardless of what country it's going to, there's things that are coming across the ocean and going across the ocean that are modular data centers. So it's happening today, but it's inside those company walls. And the challenge is we don't know what lessons they learned. We don't know how they solved some of these regulatory requirements. It's not publicly shared. And by sharing that and coming up with some standards and best practices that still comply with those requirements is really where the opportunity lies, while still respecting those regulatory requirements. But yeah, it's a great call out. Thank you. Man, I think we're within 2 minutes of our time here. So, any last call for questions. And if you just didn't want to raise your hand, or you're still curious about what modular data center might do to you, join the calls. The calls are pre-recorded. You can go to the OCP wiki just to listen to what the cadence is, what our conversations are, find out if it's a better fit for you, or join any of the calls. The project calls, and it could be any of the project calls. You don't have to be an OCP member to be part of those. Encourage your colleagues to join those calls. Have them just listen in. We won't make you stand up and tell us all about yourself. We let people volunteer their own information, so it's a very welcoming community. So I encourage you to join us.
Yeah, and if alternatively, reach out to Rob as the recognized leadership award, or me. We're very approachable, I think, on LinkedIn, and that accounts for most of the MDC people. If you find more than other than the spotlight, then we're happy to help.
Yeah, reach out to any of us. We're happy to connect you to the right person if it's not us. So, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.